So my name is Haley Stamey, and I am the Digital Learning Facilitator for the Irwin District. And I have two friends here with me today.
I'm Kenny McKee. I'm a high school literacy coach. I work with Irwin High School, Owen High School, and the early and middle colleges.
And I'm Lorraine Cossion. I'm the Owen Digital Learning Facilitator, and I also work with early and middle college and community high. Welcome.
Yeah, we're excited that you're here today. And then that bit.ly for the slides is at the bottom, as well as the chat. Lorraine's going to keep putting those in there for you as well. All right, so just a quick overview of what we're going to be doing today. Kenny's going to start us off with an overview of Newsela, just kind of how the site works and the different things you can find there. We're going to build an assignment, and if we have time, we're going to let you have a few minutes possibly to try to build one that you could use with kids tomorrow or even today. Lorraine's going to be chatting and talking to us a little bit about how we can integrate Newsela inside of Google Classroom or Canvas. We'll talk about student access, resources, and then whatever time we have left at the end is up for questions. So stay tuned. At the very end, we'll give you a link. Make sure that you use that link today to register in My Learning Plan so that you do get credit for being here today. And I'm going to turn it over to Kenny.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to provide just a quick overview of how you get into Newsela, how the website works. So if you're newer to this or if it's been a while since you've been on, this should be helpful to you. So what you'll do is you'll just start on your IM screen. And you're welcome to try to do this in another window or just watch for right now. Oh. Try that again. Wonder if I just left it up too long. So once you get into the screen, you'll go to Clever. That's where you'll find your Newsela login. And this is also how you want students to log in to Newsela. If they log in a different way, that sometimes will split the accounts and you won't actually get their assignments. So you encourage all your students to go in through Clever as well. And mine is in the favorites, but if you can't find it, you would just scroll down and it's this icon. It kind of looks like an N and kind of looks like a book. So when you first log on to Newsela, it's going to take you to this landing page, and I'm going to show you a couple things here. I'll start with just doing an article first. So what I'll do is I'm going to choose this article from today's landing page. And I want to show you that every time you get an article, there are a couple of different icons here that are for you as the teacher, and some of them are also for the student. So when Haley shows us the student view, she'll talk about which ones the students can see. The first one is present, and this is probably better for in-person learning or if you're trying to do a read aloud or modeling lesson with students. And all that really does is it makes the article your whole screen rather than seeing all those other things that were on the screen. So you'll see there's like a difference there. The save button is if you want to come back to this article, you want to use it later, you would click save. And that article will appear under your name. Hang on. The article will appear, under your content. Sorry, that's a little bit different. Under saved by you. That's how you would find that article again. And I do encourage you to save articles when you find ones that you like, because Newsela, as great as it is, it gets a lot of new content each day, so it's really difficult to find things if it's been a while. The other thing I want to show you is that Newsela has this new feature of read aloud. So it will actually read aloud to your students. They can click that.
California was a free state, but there was still slavery. Reparations are on the table.
And then you can pause that while you're reading. One thing that's different from this and other read aloud features is that I think you have to start from the beginning to use the read aloud. I don't know if I can.
By Jillian Rockall,
Yeah.
Washington.
So it reads the entire article to them. So they can't necessarily go to a certain place to start the read aloud. It just does the whole thing for them. Just click it again to get rid of the read aloud. Share just shows you different places you can share. You can copy the link. You can send it as email. We'll talk about Google Classroom in a minute. If this is an article that you want to use for a particular lesson and you don't want students to be able to find it on their own before that lesson, if you click hide, it means that it'll hide. And you see here are two groups here. I could click on a group that I don't want to find this article, okay? If you are in person and you want to print, you can print out the article and you have three options. You can do the article only, the article and the quiz, and the article and quiz with answer key, which is perfect for a sub, that last option.
Would that work for possible students who have a hard time getting internet at
Yeah,
home?
like if you're having to make packets for any kids, that could be a totally a great option for you too. And then if this article you want to include it in a text set, a text set is just a group of texts that maybe an assignment you have, you could do that here and you choose the X set, the set that you would want to use, okay? I think Haley might talk to us a little bit more about that. So that's what you have as far as these links for the article. And then each article has activities. Usually there's a write, which is a prompt, and they already have made a prompt for us here. But with our paid option for this, you can click edit, make it say whatever you want. A lot of like science, social studies, physical education, arts teachers will sometimes write a prompt about the actual content of the article that they would have rather than an ELA skill. And then you have a quiz. The quiz is always 4 questions and it measures 2 ELA standards. So in this one, it's evidence is one of the standards. And I can tell by just hovering right here. And then you can always click the next to see what else is here. That one's the same, evidence. This third one is about word choice. Okay. Next one I'm going to do is show you what the search function and filters look like. So I'm going to go back to the main page. Anytime you are unsure of where you've gotten into in Newsela, you can always click the Newsela logo here in the upper left column. It'll take you back to the main page. So what I'm going to do is show you some of the search features and functions. I'll just show you the quick links at the top here. The news, it shows you what's happening in the news when you click on that on the left side, and has these different like recent articles. And on the left, it has these different topics that you could look at. There's also the library. And the library has different things. There's fun for students, the 2020 election, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Latinx Heritage Month. Your content will be all the things that you've saved. And then assignments will show you the assignments that you've assigned to students. I'm going to let Haley talk about that more later. The last part on this part of the screen I want to show you are subjects. This is new. If you're an ELA, science, or social studies teacher, these are hubs that are designed for your subject area. So when you go into the ELA hub, you'll see that there are different collections available over here. Some are things that are articles that are related to a novel or book study. That's a great one. Some are paired texts, 2 texts that go together. One of my favorite things is the review standards and skills. Those are related to basically these different skills checks you can do that are almost like a benchmark test. They can give students to see how well they're doing on these different skills. So for instance, if you're working with nonfiction for secondary readers, you can give them one on finding the main idea, analyzing people, events, and ideas, making inferences, and see how students are doing on those skills. So they're very helpful. If you're a science teacher, same kind of deal. You'll have a page that pops up and you'll see that there's some text sets here, and there are things divided by elementary, middle, high school. There's also, if you have a certain curriculum that you're using, it'll show you articles that will go to that curriculum. Another interesting thing is that there's also infographics here. You see the multimedia, and Newsela also has videos now, which is different from the past. You can actually find videos that you could assign students as well. Quickly, I'm going to show you the social studies page. Again, you've got some reviews for key skills and concepts. You've got recent stories in the news. Here you've got some courses celebrating Black America. You've got DBQs. And if you're using a certain curriculum, you've got all these different, like here is our TCI History Alive materials. There are articles that can go along with that curriculum. I know some of our social studies teachers use that. So now I'm going to show you how you could do a search. So let's say that I'm wanting to, I'm an ELA teacher and I want to have students study information. I'm doing a unit that's going to involve the Civil War and I want to have students read some information about Lincoln. So I'm going to type in Lincoln here to do just a general search. And you'll see all these different articles are going to come up about Lincoln. And let's say that I want to make sure that this is going to be for high school. Hang on, that's not the one I want to use. Sorry, suggested for. And go to high school. And click apply. So now that's going to rule out any texts that are designed specifically for younger readers. The other thing I'm going to do is, let's say that I want to work on a reading skill with this text. I want to have my students focus on text structure. Like, how was this text written? Now I have several other articles and it's limited. Notice that on some of the articles, you have icons that show up underneath. So for instance, this article, 5 Things You May Not Know About Lincoln, Slavery, and Emancipation. That ES means this article is also available in Spanish. And then if you see a lightning bolt, that means there's a power word, which is a vocabulary activity associated with this article. I'm going to click on this article. You see it's for U.S. history, and here we have everything that we looked at before. But what I want to show you is if you just click this button, it changes it to Spanish. And the last thing I want to show you is the Lexile selector, which if you haven't used Newsela before, that's the main thing. It's got all these great materials that kids can engage with and read, but the Lexile selector will actually change the reading level of this. So you'll see that this article is right now a 9th grade level article. But let's say that a student receives this article and it's kind of difficult for them. They can actually move this selector down and it will change the readability of the article. So now you see this is a 5th grade article. And things it'll do is kind of summarize some sections, make the vocabulary simpler, make the sentence structure simpler. Sometimes it will add subheadings to give kids more clues about the main ideas.
So they get the same content, they get the same information, just on their level.
That's right. So that's a big overview of just the drive-through of Newsela, like how would it work? We are making a recording of this video, so if you want to come back and watch that again, you're welcome to, and that can show you just all the different ways you can navigate the basic screen features of Newsela. All right, so I'm going to throw it back to Haley now.
I want to just say there haven't been any questions in the chat, but if you have a question right now, you can unmute your mic and ask Kenny to clarify.
Yeah, let's do that before we move on.
I have a quick question. This is Jeanette.
Hey.
Does it automatically change the Lexile levels for the students, or is that something that, because I've noticed I've assigned articles, and then for some kids the level has been adjusted. Do they do that themselves, or does the?
So I think there's 3 answers to that. So the first answer is you can actually lock the level so they can adjust it. And Haley's going to show us how to do that in the assignment
Okay.
part coming up next.
Mhm.
So let's say that you want kids to read it at a certain level. Maybe you want them to practice their reading skills with a complex text. You can do that. The second answer is if your students have taken between 8 and 11 quizzes on Newsela, it will automatically default to what it believes is their best reading level when you assign the article. So that means that some of your kids might be getting the original article, which is what defaults at 12th grade usually. Some of the articles are for elementary, so it might be 6. But other kids in your class might be receiving it on like a 3rd or 4th grade level. It depends on how much data is in Newsela. The third answer is they can change that. So even if it assigns it to me, let's say it assigns it to me on an 8th grade reading level, as a student, unless the teacher has locked the article, I can change the readability up or down. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes. Thank you. That's
Okay,
very,
sure.
yeah, no, that's helpful. Thanks.
Are there any other questions?
Kenny, when you assign somebody a quiz or assign a group of people a quiz, is there any other way of resetting the quiz besides getting the kids to take the quiz again, except for resetting the quiz? Can you change is it just changing the Lexile level, or I don't know. I'm sorry. I should just stop my question.
Is that RJ?
Yes, sorry.
Who's that? Hey, yeah, I think that you can. I've done that before. I've reset the quiz for students for them to take it again. I will say that if you lock the level, students can't change the level until they've taken a quiz.
Okay.
So I know that will automatically unlock it for them, and they can actually take the quiz again. It'll just show up. Their name's going to show up on the grade book portion twice. Once with like a 12th grade level and once with like a 7th grade level or whatever they took it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Perfect. Any other questions?
Haley, you're muted.
Yes. Took me a second. Sorry. So we'll go ahead and move on into how to create an assignment and how you can look for materials that you can post out in your classroom. So we're going to go to, once again, the search that Kenny used a second ago. And I'm going to be searching for the water cycle. So like Kenny showed a few minutes ago, there's lots of ways you can filter and find exactly what you're looking for. So under filters, you can see if I'm looking for a specific grade level, I might put a grade level in. If there is a skill that I want to make sure to hit, I can tag that here. Let's say we're looking for main idea. That should be good for this one. Elementary, middle, high. Let's say we're going to do upper elementary. And then you can choose or find articles that only have the power words or possibly a prompt. Remember, you can change those if you would like. If you wanted to make sure that you had an article in Spanish, you can see it limits it down to 1, but you have lots of options down here. And I'm going to make sure I hit apply to start to see. Okay, so looking at the articles, I might decide after, spending a lot of time reading and researching and making sure it's the article for my kids. I'm going to select the article. And I can spend a few minutes reading through it. Once again, everything's up here at the top, but if I want to sign it out for my kids to do, they might be at home or in a hybrid situation, but I can go through, look at the article and think, if there's somewhere where I want my kids to stop and do a distributive summarizing, or I want them to do something in this article, I can actually add some annotations beforehand. So if I were to highlight this sentence, you can see I have some sticky notes over here, or some colors over here. And I might add in a thought here. This is where I want them to stop here and tell me what they learned so far, or summarize the paragraph. Make sure to hit share. Okay. And I'm going to go on out to the assign page so I could go through and look to see whatever I wanted to do with those annotations. When I go to assign this article, I can change the name if need be, if I wanted to be more specific to what we're working on, and I can select my class. So I have 3 different classes here. We were talking about locking the level a few minutes ago. So when I look at my article, it is at a 580 Lexile, and Kenny and I were talking about this a few minutes ago. So if I want to make sure that my kids are reading and they see whatever I do on that article with annotations or questions I may have built in, I'm going to need to make sure that I find the level and I lock it in that section. Now, this is not necessary. You don't always have to lock, but if you're going to go through and you're going to spend the time to put in questions and annotate on that article, it's going to need a new annotation list for each level. So you can either put annotations and highlight on each level, or you can do it on the level you want them to, and you can lock them into that level. Clarify if I said that wrong, Kenny. You're muted, sorry.
I think everything you said there was correct.
Okay. So whether or not you lock it, no one says you have to lock it, but if you're wanting them to see your annotations or any kind of highlighting you've done, you will need to lock it or choose to annotate on each level. In your instructions, you can make these as detailed as you want them to be. So thinking about what you might have students working on, you might say, you know, I would like for you to read the article once, and then on the second read, I want you to highlight the opinions in purple. Or I might want you at the end of each paragraph to stop and jot one thing that pops into your head. So you can kind of create a key if you would like, and I'll go back to the presentation and show you some of those ideas in a few minutes. So these instructions can be as lengthy as you want them to be. So I'm going to add one just for now. Read and highlight. You would never just tell your kids to read and highlight, but
Haley,
yes, ma'am.
I would love to ask the group what they think about the need for locking with annotation, but also how you could differentiate with your students by assigning them the different levels. Does anyone have a comment to make, to share with us?
And I've seen teachers do that where they create an assignment for one group and a different assignment, and they may say, you know, I would like for the red group to go and read the flower article and the blue group to read an entirely different article.
Mm-hmm. I think it's
I've also seen teachers put the annotations on the most difficult part, but not lock it, and tell the students that they can reread the information at a lower level and then come back to it. So that way the students that need that support can use it, and those that don't have to.
The same thing with the Spanish. So I have seen, you know, with the articles that are in Spanish, having them, or even the thought of them with a parent, be able to look at one language and then look at the other to try to get the meaning from both. So I think that's definitely great ways to think about it. All right, so I am going to go ahead and assign. And it's going to live in my binder. So I can see everything that I've assigned, who's been working on it eventually. See who's working on it, how much time they've spent on the article. So, you know, if they've spent 3 minutes, that you may have a bigger issue. And how many students have even looked at that article yet. Okay. And the binder lives up top, and you could directly go back to this page after you have created some assignments. Okay. So I'm going to pause here for questions and see if there's any questions about just assigning within Newsela.
Haley, I'm RJ from Owen High School. Quick question for you. When you assign, is there an easy way or an easier way of finding the link to where you shared it? I know it gives you an option for like remind and email and stuff like that. Is that the only three? Oh, or it's just copy. Oh my goodness gracious. Never mind. I've been using the little arrow and then going to remind and copying it. Oh, brother. Okay.
So there is a little button right here for copy, and that will copy that link. And Lorraine's going to talk a little bit about being able to take the assignment you make and get it out into Google Classroom and Canvas.
Thank you. Sorry.
It's okay. Any other questions you guys have about creating that assignment? And we'll spend a little bit of time in a few minutes looking at the other side from the student view, because sometimes that's helpful to see what kids see when they log into Newsela. All righty. I think we're ready, Lorraine, and I'm going to go back to that binder and student view afterwards.
You're going to share your screen and the slides?
I would love to.
So I know before we move from here, well, okay, how many of you can, if you put in the chat, how many of you use Canvas? Can you just type it in the chat so we can all see it?
Canvas.
So RJ does and Loretta. Okay. And how about Google Classroom? Okay. So we're just going to, nice, Andy. So in Google Classroom, there are two ways to do this. RJ just helped us see how to copy the link. And you can, of course, just copy the link, make an assignment into your Google Classroom, and have the students access Newsela from your Google Classroom. The key here, however, is most students leave their tabs open. They end the day and they shut the laptop. They go back in to their school, they open it up. Google Classroom will stay open, but Rapid Identity will close. It will time out. And then all of a sudden, the things that you have posted in Google Classroom will no longer work. So just keep that in mind with students. If they're telling you things are not working for them or that they have to log in multiple times, that would be the reason. So Haley is showing you this little arrow. If you click that arrow, it will give you the option to go to Google Classroom, and it will actually take her to her Google Classroom so that she can say which class to assign it to. And she'll assign it. So you have two ways to do this. You can just build it inside of Google Classroom with the link that you copied, or you can send it to Google Classroom from Newsela. She's going to just make that happen. Any questions about that? Okay, we're going to go to Canvas then. In Canvas, Newsela is supposed to have a way to integrate an external link, but it doesn't work in our Canvas because Newsela has it set so that if you do that, it will duplicate the accounts. So the best way to use the Newsela within Canvas is to carefully craft your assignment inside of Canvas. Haley, we're seeing Newsela, there we go. Inside of Canvas, and if you have the slides open on another tab, perhaps you could look at the way this is set up. And RJ, you are the only one still here that uses Canvas because Loretta just had to jump out. Tell me what you can see about this. What do you think about the way he set this up, this teacher? There it is. Unmute yourself, RJ.
Yep, that would help. Lots of writing. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Lots of very little writing, but I like it.
I like that he put the learning targets in the instructions or in the.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Got the link right there. Map.
So I asked a student to do this today for me before we met so that I could see what the student thought about the instructions and the clarity. It looked like a lot to me too, but this student said it was really easy to follow and he liked the way it was set up. He had two recommendations. One, when you tell students to use the highlighter and do things, well, this teacher said to circle words, and the student said, well, we have a highlighter, we don't have a way to circle. So just make sure you model those things with your students when you're asking them to do something with the annotation tools. And the other piece he said was they were asked to write in the text box the response to the article. And in Newsela, it's very small, that text box where you're able to type. So this student said he typed it on the Canvas side and then copied and pasted it into Newsela. What's the beauty part of the teacher requiring both the Newsela interaction and the Canvas? Why is that helping the teacher manage his classroom and the learning? In Canvas, he can use SpeedGrader and actually give the assignment some credit in PowerSchool and not have to go over back and forth between the two platforms and still see the students thinking. So that's how you would do that inside of Canvas. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you.
I feel like we have mostly high school teachers here today, but of course, just like you access Newsela through Clever, students will access it the same way, and we've talked about that several times today. Our iPad users need to have an app. So if you have a kid that for some reason is working on a phone, you want to make sure that they can download the Newsela app, and that will still force them to log in through their IAM. Okay. I have a couple screenshots here, and then I'm going to show you from the student view as well. But when a student first logs into Newsela, they're going to see their assignments at the very first screen. So I'm going to attempt to share a student screen with you. So this is my student that I live with at home. And you can see when he first logs on to Newsela, he's going to get the articles that were last assigned. So he can just click on his article. All right, he would have some, hopefully some better instructions here. And then he is able to go through and get started with it. So as you can see, if we needed to use the read aloud tool, it's still there for the student. And the student can also save the article or share it out or print it. He can see the highlights that the teacher has added, and he can reply. So if the teacher has asked, what do you think about this? He can hit the reply button, and he can add his own thinking to it as well. And then you're going to be able to see his annotations back in your binder in a few minutes. So this is kind of just what it looks like from the student side. Students can also, like Kenny said a minute ago, click on the Newsela to get back to kind of that front screen. But along with their assignments, students do have the opportunity to explore and find articles. So if you were wanting them to have some time to read about something they want or research a certain thing, they can go to explore and they can search and find articles of interest to them. I'm assuming the search bar works the same for the kids. So if he was learning about the Civil War, whoops, he could go in and find articles here. You can see there's the video button that Kenny was talking about a second ago. So he can actually search for some videos and find some information that way as well. Any questions from the student side as far as what students see when they log in? And then, of course, if they were in Google Classroom or they were inside Canvas, it still directs them back into their Newsela account. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back, if that's okay, to the teacher view to show you where that binder lives and where you can go back and get that information about what sweet darlings have turned in their work. So inside Newsela, at the very top, you have your binder. And I don't really want to pull up the district binder, but you can go in here. You can see their work. We can click on, let's see, one that has some information here. Who has completed that activity? So in this group, you would have a list of all of your students under here, when they did it, how much time they spent in it, and lots of additional information about them here. Any other things about the binder? I know Kenny had some good examples as far as just what else you can find in that binder. You don't
Yeah, I
have
mean,
to
if you,
share it. You don't have to share it, but just
yeah, I'll just tell you, just for student confidentiality, I can't bring up all those things, but if you look at the reading summary there, that also will give you some input on different skills and how students are progressing on skills. And if they're making progress, it'll be green. If they're getting close, it'll have a yellow dot, and if not, it'll have a red dot. That's usually 50% or lower on their quiz average for a particular skill.
see. I would like to give you guys, let's say 5 minutes, 6 minutes to log into Newsela, find an article that you could possibly use with your students in the next week or so, one that make it applicable to something you would like to do, and explore the search filters. And we're going to be here for questions, let's say for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back, say 10. I think we have time for 10. We'll come back in 10 minutes and wrap up with any questions that you guys have. And from there, we'll give you the link for my learning plan today, but we'll give you, let's say 10 minutes to explore through Newsela. Yes.
I just wanted to say that RJ had a great example of how he uses Newsela on asynchronous days. And I thought that if he gave that little nugget of information as you guys are searching, you might keep his tip in mind.
I've been trying to implement. I know Kenny has been trying to get us to really, get a lot more reading into our classes. This is a perfect time to kind of do it. So I set it up as assign an article on the asynchronous days with a 4-question multiple choice quiz, and I say you have to get at least 75 on it, and they go in and they do it, and that's their attendance for the day. And it takes just a few minutes to do that. And you have feedback that they were there.
Thank you. I thought that was a great idea.
And as you guys are building for a few minutes, we're here for questions or anything. If you need to unmute, feel free. So that wait time is brutal in a Zoom meeting. But does anybody have anything they want to share or something they've thought of while building an assignment? Thumbs up, use some kind of reaction if you have planned to use this in the next 3 weeks. Yeah, there we go. So I'm glad you're finding some use in this, and I really like the idea behind using that for that asynchronous day as a check-in or an attendance piece. So that was a good example. Is there any questions or anything that you guys have? I do want to share one thing that I forgot to share. And this is probably not applicable to most of you here, but if you are an elementary school teacher, when you go to the binder and you go to your classes, you want to make sure that that elementary feature is turned on, just so that we have our kids in the lower levels not accessing content or inappropriate content for that age. So I wanted to make sure I told you guys that. Also, the other thing was at the very end of the slideshow, and I'll turn that one over to Kenny and Lorraine if you guys want to chat about any of that.
Yeah, what we did is we put some resources together that are connected to the Newsela site. So you can click a link and get quickly to these if you're interested. There is, Lorraine, do you want to say anything about this? Okay. So the first one is just an article about staying connected during distance learning. It gives you some ideas for how you can do that with Newsela. There's a nice video that's an overview for caregivers. So if you're using Newsela for any of your home assignments, it's a video that explains how Newsela works to parents and grandparents and whoever might be working with kids, at home. There's a great resource for anti-racist teaching and instruction. So that's a cool hub to see, and it gives you some ideas of how you can use Newsela materials for that. There's a distance learning course you can take that will teach you just about how to use Newsela remotely. There's the Newsela Certified Educator course, which gives you a certification from Newsela, and it's a 5-hour course that you can use for digital learning credit. And there's also a Getting Started page that just has articles and videos that will help you review any of the basic information we've shown you today. If you just want a refresher on like one small thing, that's a great resource.
So coming in the chat is the link to my learning plan. Make sure before you walk out today that you go ahead and register for this session. And we will be getting this back up on YouTube and sending it back out in our PD catalog. So if there was a session last month that you missed, we're working on getting those links back in the September catalog. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I will find that catalog for you as well, because you can do that asynchronously on your own time as well. So the My Learning Plan link is there. Please don't leave without doing that. And while you guys are doing that My Learning Plan link, I will link back to the September and October PD catalog. The digital learning team, different digital learning facilitators are working on PD once or twice a week and invite anyone from the district to join us. So I will add that as well.
Just keep in mind with Newsela that Kenny said how often they add the new articles. So it's really worth your while to jump in there and see if there's anything you might want to save for a later date. Maybe in something you'll be studying in a few months and an article comes out today or this week, that's perfect for it. So keep yourself in there looking at them and tagging them to your account.
All right, and I'll send you one last link in case you want access back to the September. October's going on live. And then we've recently added November and December in. And please reach out to any of us if you guys have questions, and we will be happy to help out. Appreciate all of you coming today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
It's